Okay, so I'm on stream right now, and I had someone come into chat and ask me how should he prioritize using his golden lattices, which will now be called golden tofus, because he doesn't know where he wants to put the leftover tofus that he has and he's hoarding, and he doesn't know where they want to put it. So I thought it would be a good idea to make a video right now on how to prioritize your tofu allocation to your SSRs, because we all know that that shit is so fucking scarce. It's impossible to, max skill up everybody. Okay, so I'm gonna give you guys a couple of frameworks that I use personally and how I use the knowledge that I have to facilitate me putting tofus into certain characters. Okay, so first off, what I want you guys to do, alright, just jump into the archive. Okay, and let's say for example you want to build up Messiah. Everyone should have a Messiah because he was on the banner. So first thing you want to do is you want to look at, what the skill does when you give it tofus. Alright? So for example, if you look at Messiah, if you go all the way, right, if you max skill his S3, this is where you're going to get extra damage multipliers up to 180%. At level 3, which is 2 tofus, you're going to, start ignoring passives when you're attacking. And by the time you max skill him, you're going to ignore 70% defense. Okay? Ignoring 70% defense and passive is hella huge. Alright? Because what does that do for Messiah? Basically, he does way more damage. And if you're fighting against like a Tiamat, you ignore her passive so she doesn't get bloodshed stacks. She cannot transform if she doesn't get bloodshed stacks. And you nuke her to fucking oblivion. Okay? That's good. So, when you look at something like this, right? That's when you go, okay, I like that. Now, if you have a Messiah, what you're going to do is, if you're going to go back to your characters, okay, go to Messiah, go to your prioritise, okay, and click on the skill. Alright? Look at the wheel. Alright? You can see that speed is also in your S3. Now, this is worthwhile getting, okay? Because not only are you getting the ignore, not only are you getting the ignore passives, the defense, what do you call it? Defense ignore. You're also getting 15 speed here. So your DPS is no longer moving like a fucking tortoise, okay? This is one of the main criterias. When you're looking at a unit, make sure you're also looking at where are the stats that you can get through unlocking the skill ups with your tofus. Okay, so for example, let's look at Lily here. Okay, now if we look at Lily and we go to the S1, which we know, right? If we click on the S1, you know that she dual attacks, right? If she attacks with her S1, she's going to bring someone who has Twin Trick to assist her. Okay, so what have XD done for us? They have included the 15 speed here because they know that everybody is going to, max the skill 1 first so that they can get the 15 speed at the same time. Yeah? So that is what I want you guys to think about when you are, scaling up your units. Alright? So let's look at Borkney because specifically the viewer is looking for Borkney. Where's my Borkney? He's over here. Okay, let's look at his skill here. Alright, let's look at skill 1. Alright, skill 1 gives you recovery percentage up to 60%, so when he attacks, he lifesteals. Okay, and he increases damage multipliers. Do you really need, 60% lifesteal to survive as a tank? Probably not. Maybe late game, that will matter. But eventually you're going to get to the late game, and that will be unlocked for you anyway. Alright? So you can see, because we know that this is not going to be so much of a priority. Look what's here. It's just attack increase. Okay? Let's look at the skill 2 now. Alright? Now his skill 2, relatively important because now it increases his HP ratio from his attack to HP. Alright? Increases damage dealt as well. You might want to get this up to, level 4. right? First. So what does that unlock for you? Effect res. Okay, not so important. Now let's look at skill 3. Okay, now what does skill 3 do? Skill 3 basically 100% dispels one buff for you and reduces its cooldown to 3 turns from a 4 turn, which means that he can spam this. If you make him move really fast, he can constantly spam S3, S3, S3. Alright? And in order for you to do that, you need to be fast. And guess what they did, chat? Look at this wheel. His 15 speed is here. What does that tell you? That means your priority should be going into your S3 first. Okay? To get this. Alright? Because you definitely want this node, this level 4 node, to get the 100% dispel buffs from your opponent. 100%. The skill cooldown, debatable. Okay, if you're drafting Borgny in a very, very aggressive comp to begin with, okay, they're probably dead by the time you rotate around 3 turns. Okay, but if you're drafting him in a bruiser game, or if you're drafting him in a tank draft, then you probably need this because now it's a war of attrition. Alright? So, by knowing that, you can see where to allocate your tofus. Alright? Now, a little tip that I like to do is, if let's say I'm building a turn meter pusher, for example like Tsukiyomi, right? You can see that in her S3, right, is where her turn meter is, okay? But they want you to get the effect accuracy here. And that is not so much of a necessity for her unless you're trying to silence someone, okay? So, when you're using Tsukiyomi, you know that she's a turn meter pusher. Do you really need to get her to, 80%? Maybe. You can throw one in there so that, you can actually turn meter push your very last unit to the front instead of just having 60%. But 60% is still a whole lot. It's still a whole lot. So if you look at the turn meter progression bar, if you see someone at like 50%, this is pushing them to 100 already. Alright, and overflowing by 10. Alright, but what do you need to become a pusher? You need speed. So where is her speed now? Her speed is in her S1. And why is it in her S1? You would ask. Well, that's because, if you read what this does, right? Deals 260% to efforts and increases the turn meter of an ally with the highest attack. So that means if she S1s, she's pushing the highest attack forward. And usually with your highest attack where your DPS, they are not as fast. So this is helping them push further. And what you're doing here is you're giving them an extra 15% or 25% versus a 10. Which is why they put the speed here. Because this is more important. Alright? If you're constantly going fast and you're constantly attacking, you're also constantly subconsciously pushing, or not subconsciously, consequentially pushing your DPS forward to take more turns. Okay? So what I want you guys to do is when you are stuck on what to use your tofus on, okay? Think about number 1, do you need a pusher? And if you do need a pusher, where is the speed? Go for the speed first. Okay? If not, if you're building a DPS, where is the main play for that unit? What is the main role of that unit? Like I gave you guys the example of Messiah earlier on over here. He's all about slamming the S3, getting the invincibility, and just killing people through that. Because don't forget that in his S1, right, he has this passive called Judgment that if he kills someone, he gets a 1-turn invincibility as well. Okay? And so, in order to do that, you are going to need to get, the minus 70 defense ignore the passives and all that kind of good stuff. Okay? And usually, if you find where the speed is usually the game telling you this is more important. That is what I have noticed. Okay? So let's look at, let's say, a Hell Kit over here. Okay? You can see that his entire gimmick here is all about his Shroud Barrier. Right? And which is why, if you can have, a bigger Shroud Barrier, let's say 220% of his attack, which is currently right now only 200%, an extra 20% more is a lot. Alright? And then when you get here, it goes to 240%, which is even more. But what you get here is also 15 speed. Okay? Which makes, your gearing for Hellkit a lot better, your turn order a lot more smoother. All right, so that is basically the entire idea or framework. I don't have to go on too much about it because the idea all sticks throughout every single unit in this game. All right, and it's the same for even supporters here. Because if we look at Sania over here, okay, you can see that her S3 is nice and all, but where her speed is in here. And why is that? It's because this gives you turn meter push for her. The more she pushes, the faster she gets a chance to heal. Agree? So think about it like that. Even for your SR units, and that's why I chose Sania. But that's it, guys. Hopefully this framework on how to use your tofus gets through to you. But if you like this content, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Catch you guys in the next one.